All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the program. Let's bring in Mr. Josh Waters. Josh is with Political Strategies, and he's calling in. He's on the phone. Josh, welcome back, sir.
Hey, Paul. Thanks for having me back.
I appreciate it. Normally, I know we do these little things in person, or we've been doing these interviews in person down from the Marble Palace. Are you still down at the Marble Palace, or have you been given a reprieve?
I left this morning, so I'm back up here in Fayetteville now.
Okay, all right. So, tell me about you were the one. You're the source on the Conduit for Action article about this bill to disclose people getting bribed. That's essentially what this is. You're the source. You were in the room. Tell us what happened.
Yeah, I was in the room. It's SB 175, like you've been talking about, by Senator Brian King, and Josh Miller also. He was the House sponsor, so he presented as well. And they got started. And one thing that I thought was interesting was Senator King actually went around the entire room. It looked like to pretty much every person on the committee. I don't know what was said, but I do know and saw that he went around the room talking to each member, or most members of the committee, before they heard his bill when they were hearing another bill. So I think people knew what was coming. So he went down and he presented his bill, and Josh Miller presented and talked about basically what it did, and I think everyone knew what it did, because almost immediately upon them finishing, Representative Jeff Wardlaw made a motion of do not pass, which is,
was this?
I think I've only heard.
Was this motion made after Senator King was done explaining the bill?
Yes.
Okay.
It was made immediately after he was done explaining the bill. It was a motion do not pass, and I think I've only heard it one other time for a motion do not pass. So I think it's pretty rare. And he did that, and then they opened it up for discussion, which is the next process. And Representative Miller, who was presenting the bill, is also a member of this committee. So he just was saying, well, I don't think, obviously he didn't want this motion to pass. And so as soon as he was done, though, before any other discussion could be had, Representative Michelle Gray moved for immediate consideration. What that means is they're going to vote right then on that motion, and there's no more discussion allowed.
Hang on a second. You're saying that Michelle Gray moved for immediate consideration on this bill, and she was one of the no votes, right? Or she was one of the she was not supportive of this legislation, was she?
That's right, and so obviously that's why she wanted to cut off any discussion or debate of the bill. They knew what it was. They knew what it did.
Oh my gosh!
So she moved for immediate consideration to shut off and shut down any debate or further discussion and try to kill this bill with that vote.
Oh my goodness!
So ultimately,
go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, you go. I'm just going to say, look, every one of these people that are opposed to this bill, get ready. You're going to get a question on the record. Are you being paid by a Medicaid entity? Are you being paid as a consultant, or in any way being paid with Medicaid dollars? That to me is a question that every one of them needs to be asked now, considering what's in the news. Go ahead, Josh.
Yeah. And so, that took place, and then that vote carried for immediate consideration. Then they immediately voted on the do not pass motion. And initially it was called in a voice vote that the ayes have it, and so do not pass carried. Well, they roll called, and that's really the only way we have to know where these legislators vote on these issues if a roll call is called. So Josh Miller called for a roll call. And that's where the 8 yes votes for do not pass, 5 no votes for basically against that, and those, I guess, who were supportive of the measure, at least didn't want this motion to carry. And so that actually failed, and so then they could come back and do a motion do pass, which Representative Miller signaled, and so that failed on a voice vote. He called another roll call, and so that's how we get the breakdown of 4 yeses, 8 nos on the do pass motion.
Wow. All right, so it was pretty discouraged. I mean, I was discouraged when I heard about it. I've kind of stewed about this for the last 24 hours almost. So, Josh, I mean, is this bill essentially dead? I mean, we're going to run out of time before it could be heard again, or is there a chance? Do you think there's a chance that people, bang the drums enough with some of these people on this committee that they will change their minds?
I'm not. I think it might be dead at this point unless something big happens. The way I understand it, what would have to happen now is a motion to expunge the vote, and I believe that's a 2/3 majority.
Yeah, that's not going to happen, is it?
I don't think unless something changes, I don't think that's going to happen in the committee.
Wow.
So it's possible, not likely.
Okay. Well, this just makes if the average Arkansan knew the need for this bill, and if the average Arkansan knew that measures were being taken to prevent this bill from being passed, because disclosing all of this is going to really, really open a lot of people's eyes as to why they vote the way they do when it comes to Medicaid, I think there would be just a massive amount of outrage. Now, the next question to you, Josh, is, was the full 20-member committee present? I understand that maybe there were some people absent, and that's understandable considering the fact that there's so much going on right now.
Yes, there was two committee members, Representative Andy Davis and Representative Kim Hendren, who are just absent, so we don't know where they fall on the issue. And then there was a few there who were present and did not vote. And I think there might have been for one of the votes, one of the legislators may have stepped out of the room at the exact moment. So we do have the official roll call, and we have the official attendance sheet. So we know officially Andy Davis, Kim Hendren were absent.
Okay.
Whether or not they're on the not voting list, whether or not those people were actually sitting in their seats when the vote took place, I guess we could go back and look at the camera, but we don't know specifically on that. But there were several who just didn't vote who were present. Yeah,
man, I got to tell you, it's just really disheartening. We're going to be talking with Senator Brian King coming up at 5 o'clock to get a little bit more.
Oh, good.
Yeah, to get a little bit more information about, how he feels about this. He's got other bills and stuff to talk about as well. But this is one we've got to pay attention to. And this is go ahead.
Well, I was just going to mention, Brian King mentioned it, and he might bring it up. $8 billion, and I think it was just approved yesterday, up to $8.3 billion appropriation for this next fiscal year for Medicaid DHS spending. The DHS appropriation, I guess you should say, which is included in there. And so, what other industry has this big of an impact on Arkansas? And that was, I think, one of the biggest arguments. But I thought the most effective argument made was by Representative Josh Miller. He used the example that he owns some rental properties, and if a Medicaid provider, or I think he said Baptist Hospital, if they want to come to him and say, hey, we'll give you 5 times the market rate to rent out these rental properties. Well, for him, he's like, well, that's 5 times the market rate, but, man, that's a good business deal.
Yeah.
Well, he wouldn't. No disclosure would technically have to be done. He would just have to say over, I think it's 12,500 on their report. They just have to say they get more than that and who it comes from.
Yeah.
But they don't say how much exactly. It's just over $12,000.
Mm-hmm.
And so, however, if he used the example, if ASU Heber Springs wanted to do the same thing and rent this out, that there's some type of disclosure process for
already. That. It's exactly right. If you have, I've used this one before. If you've got a lawn care business and you're a state legislator, and that lawn care business gets a contract, cutting the lawn of Arkansas Tech University, you're going to have to disclose that. I mean, that's just the way it is. This really sheds a lot of light, Josh, on the committee selection process and how valuable these committees are. I want to give you a flashback. When the session was in its infancy, maybe even in December, 2016, when the bills were starting to be filed and stuff, I remember hearing from state representatives who were saying, you know what, the committee process is going to be fine because we have 76 Republican House members, and we can just pull something directly out of committee if we want to. It's the lack of unity right now in the Republican Party of Arkansas and fealty to actual limited government conservatism is is non-existent. I mean, they are shattered. They are more divided now than when they only had 30 members in the House of Representatives. So, all right, Josh, you also have another bit of information that happened this morning in the Arkansas Senate. And I've got a great segue here. Sometimes the shows just write themselves. During my first segment, I got a voicemail from a listener, and it's a critical voicemail. This listener, she appears to be critical of me, and just a little bit. But I love her. I love what she said. I agree with what she said. Listen to this. Listen to this voicemail.
Okay. Yeah, this is just an opinion on the show that I listened to the other day where you were talking about edible marijuana and you were so upset that it didn't get passed and blah, blah, blah. I just want to say, and I don't do marijuana or anything like that, but I just wanted to say I was so shocked that you people, I don't know if you're liberals masquerading as conservatives or what, but you just don't seem to get it. We don't want any more regulations placed upon the people. We're fed up with the police state, and we are tired of the New World Order trying to protect us from ourselves. We can protect ourselves by ourselves. We do not want more police state and more regulations where they can threaten you if you don't do it their way every time they want something done out of the people. We want to be left alone, and you just don't seem to get it. No more regulations. I'm in favor of Donald Trump, who says anytime you want to add a regulation, you have to take two away, because we are overly regulated, and we're sick of it. And I just hope that you get that message. Thank you.
Like I said, this woman who's listening to the program, first of all, I'm so glad she's a listener. And, yeah, she did kind of call me a liberal there. She's referencing, which I'm not, she is referencing our interview with Ken Yang, a family counsel, and
okay.
We could... and that was over, trying to stop edible marijuana and that sort of thing. But I can address that at a later issue. What she brought up, Josh, was Donald Trump. For every one regulation, you got to get rid of two more. Tell us about Linda Collins Smith bill and what happened in the Arkansas Senate this morning.
Yes, so Linda Collins Smith has a bill that you can't script this almost, it seems like, but she has a bill, Senate Bill 512. And it would basically do at the state level similar to what President Trump did at the federal level for whenever you repeal or whenever you implement a new rule or regulation, you have to then repeal one as well. And so, that's what her bill did. It was short and sweet. It's
just like the president. I mean, it's right in line with President Trump.
Yep. There's a exception if there's an emergency. There's an exception if it's very specifically. Basically, the General Assembly says this has to be a regulation, and that's exempt. I think most conservatives, when they hear that, they're going to get on board. And that bill did not pass today. Was the end result. But in the process, I'm more focused on policy. I know it's politics, and there's going to be all kinds of different sides. I don't know what's led up to this, but I just wanted to, I shared with you earlier, and I think your listeners need to be aware of kind of what happened on this bill. This was a anti-regulation bill or deregulation bill. And so there's a few questions for Senator Collins Smith as she was presenting her bill, and there are some valid questions. But then one of the governor's nephews, Senator Jeremy Hutchinson, took to the floor to speak against the bill. And he was talking about he didn't think this was the way to do it. And actually, he I don't have the direct quote, but basically he was saying this was the lazy way to do this.
Did he use that exact word? Did he use the word lazy?
He did use the word lazy. He said this is the lazy way to go about doing this.
That's kind of insulting. That's yeah. You know what? That's par for the course with the governor's nephew, Jeremy Hutchinson. Par for the course.
Oh.
Anyway, so what happened then?
Yeah. Oh, I have it here now. Lazy way out is the quote.
Wow. Okay.
And so that was the language. And then Senator Sanders, who had actually asked some questions of Senator Collins Smith, trying to figure out, was there a better way maybe of doing this. He actually took to the floor, and usually when people go to the floor, they speak for or against the bill. He said, I'm not speaking for or against it, I'm just speaking on it. And he defended Linda Consmith and said, this is not a lazy way out.
You're saying, is this a senator? Which senator was this that did this?
David Sanders.
Okay, so Senator David Sanders took to the floor and defended Senator Colin Smith and said, this is not lazy. So keep going. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you. What else?
Yeah. No, I'm glad we're drilling it down. That's exactly what he did. He said, I think she should be commended, that this is a good thing she's trying to do, and that he ended up voting for it. I think he thought there was maybe a better way to do it, but he thought she was doing it, so he defended her. Well, so what happens then whenever everyone who wants to speak on the bill is done? The sponsor is then usually always allowed to close for the bill, and she's allowed to basically address any concerns or any arguments. Well, she starts heading to the podium, and Senator Jim Hendren moved for immediate consideration, which shut her off and did not even give her an opportunity to address the comments that Senator Hutchinson made about this being a lazy way out. And it just really rubbed me the wrong way, Paul. I got to be honest with you. Being down there this session, I like to focus on the policy, and there's some audible, ooh, whenever he made the comment from the gallery, and just to see that and see the way they,
Yeah.
One nephew said this is a lazy way out. The other nephew shut her down from closing from her bill.
Yep.
And so
you know what that's called, Josh? You know what I call that, right? Well, that's called getting nephewed, and we keep getting nephewed over and over and over by the governor's family members, and I'm sick of it. So Jeremy Hutchinson calls her lazy, and Jim Hendren keeps her from going down there and responding and closing for her bill. How close was the vote? Was it close at all?
I think it got 11 or 12 votes.
That's pathetic.
No,
that's pathetic. Republicans are pathetic. I mean, that's ridiculous. You have the President of the United States instituting a rule: if you get one new regulation, you got to find two more. And we have once again Little Rock demonstrating that they are, per capita or based on like a concentration, they're a bigger swamp than Washington D.C. because the amount of people that control things is so much smaller. It's just sick. I'm sick and tired of Republicans down there not being conservative. It's just turns my stomach.
Well, I got the vote here. It was 11 yeses, 8 nos, and there were 14 who were there and just didn't vote either way. So
wow. Well, good for Senator Linda Collins Smith for at least trying to, to get a great bill passed, to get an actual conservative bill passed.
Yeah, no, she's working hard down there. I've had the opportunity to get to know her a little bit this session, and man, she's there for the right reasons. I firmly believe that she's there to defend the Constitution and to defend the rights of citizens and try to make this a business-friendly state, and she's a strong conservative, strong defender of the Second Amendment, and I believe she's representing her district very well in Senate District 19.
I don't know why Senator Jim Hendren, who used to be, according to his own admission, Senator Jim Hendren, he used to be Mr. Conservative. I mean, he was down there holding these press conferences, trying to fight the Democrats, and then all this. The worst thing that ever happened to Jim Hendren's conservative record was his uncle getting elected governor, because it really just, blood is thicker than political ideologies. I'll tell you that much. If Jim Hendren had any political ideologies to begin with, because he's just turned into a. I don't know, like I guess a Mitt Romney Republican or a Charlie Crist Republican. I mean, it's ridiculous. Why in the world would you be so? I expect it from Jeremy Hutchinson because Jeremy Hutchinson's a liberal. I mean, he's been a liberal for a while, masquerading as a Republican. But the other nephew number one, Jim Hendren, he's just been, a giant disappointment when he misled everybody on Medicaid expansion. But the idea was, you got to trust me on this. I'm a conservative on everything else. we are really conservatives, and then just every big government issue, it's always the same bunch of people who are on the same side of growing government. In our health care, they're on the same side of trying to stop common sense solutions. It's really, really, really sad. Josh, I do appreciate it. Appreciate you coming on the program as always. Josh Waters with Political Strategies. Are you going back down to the Marble Palace next week? Will I see you there?
Yeah, I'll be there. I've heard it's going to be the last week, so there's no telling what will happen.
Yep.
But I would encourage your listeners, I guess, two big things still out there is SB 140, the Internet Sales Tax. Keep contacting your House of Representatives members. Let them know how you feel about adding $100 to $150 more million in new revenue to the state straight from their pocketbook. And then the gas tax increase proposal, that's House Bill 1726 and House Bill 1727. That might be dead. It has to get an expunge vote, which requires 2/3 of the House. But still, keep the pressure on. Keep contacting them, letting you know they don't want their taxes increased.
Yeah. All right. Josh Waters with Political Strategies. We appreciate it, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, folks, we got to take a break. You're listening to the Paul Harrell program. The Liberty Machine rolls on next.